Morning, church.
Morning.
Now, numbers are off. You know what they say, when the cat's away, the mouse will play. So, looks like we got some empty seats, but we're glad to have each of you here. We've got a very, very special speaker this morning. Most of you know, he's been here giving his testimony before, and this morning he's going to give the message. Then, Kaszeta is a Christian fellow athlete, leader, a missionary from our church, in fact, in Louisiana. He'll be coming and speaking to us today, and I know we're all looking forward to that. Now, Pastor and his family are away. We want to keep them in our prayers. So, before we start this morning, let's go to the Lord in prayer and have Him bless His services as we go forward. Our most holy, righteous Heavenly Father, Lord, as we come before you, we thank you for the many blessings. We thank you for sparing our health during these trying times. And we just pray, Lord, that you'll be with this nation, you'll be with our country, you'll be with our leaders, Lord, and you will direct our paths that we might get through this and we might come out stronger on the other end. We just pray, Lord, that you'll be with this service today. Be with each one that is here. Open our hearts and our minds, Lord, as we hear the word that has been given to Ben this morning, Lord, that he might preach with power and truth and boldness as we know he always does, that we might hear and we might react upon what he says. Be with the ones that are leading the music, Lord, and we just pray, Lord, that you'll be with each one this way. We ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Jesus, our God, unstoppable. And nothing shall
I just ask you, God, just lay your hand on me this morning. God, I ask you, God, I just ask you to lead, God, direct us in everything we do, God. I thank you so much, God, for allowing us to sing these words. Allow us to meet here today. God, I thank you, most importantly, for sending your Son to die for us, God. For him to be raised, defeat death, hell, and the grave. God, I thank you so much, God. I love you. God, we're not worth it. I love you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I can't, it felt a little bit overwhelming, like emotion, as I'm sitting here thinking, a few years ago, more than a few years ago, but a few years ago, I sat right here in this church, not knowing not knowing why I was here, not knowing any of this other stuff, not really even knowing who I was. But right over here, somewhere, sitting in here on a Wednesday night where I gave my life to Christ after sitting in the parking lot twice and not coming inside. I mean, it's a totally different world. Just a fair warning. Again, Ben Kaszeta, I work with college athletes 90% of the time, and high school kids do. I have a tendency to travel left and right, to get a little jumpy and emotional at times, so if I bounce around, that's my fair warning, okay? This feels like every time I say it, I said it a couple weeks ago, I'm coming back and just being here, it feels like coming home every time I come back. Detroit is home. Detroit is where I grew up. But I come here and I've had this overwhelming extra, this church has this overwhelming extra feel of home. And it gets to literally get goosebumps when I think about it. Just the family atmosphere, the people that in this church, that Robert and Janice, who I have such an admiration for, and the Clendennings, and then Michael, who houses me every single time. You guys think you have it bad. And Michael and Kristen have to put up with me at their house the whole time. It's a blessing, right? It's a blessing. But I believe all of this kind of point, it gets to this point, we learn a whole lot about who we are, and life is a journey, and life is all this kind of point that's going to bring you it brought me from Detroit to Louisiana the first time, to here, off to North Dakota, and then back down to Louisiana, and there's been a bunch of other stops along the way. So I've lived in 7 different states, I've traveled all over the country, and been truly blessed to be a college volleyball coach, most of it. The last year, right around this time last year, God really put a big tug on my heartstrings and said, "Hey, I need you to do something different. I need you to change." So it got to this point, so me being to this, I don't know how we're going to do the things, but we can go to the next one. But it got to this point that was almost 10 years ago and then coming back home, right? But it got me to this point of thinking what it did in the last 10 years. Just in the last 10 years, and this is my favorite picture. The favorite 2 pictures that I literally have on my iPad, if anything else, that pop up on my watch all the time, is being, right there, being baptized in this church. Amen. To not even 6 months ago, baptizing just before Christmas break, being able to baptize a couple of baseball players down on campus. It's amazing to me when I think about this journey of going from one place to the next. Now I serve with this great, amazing pastor team. I technically serve on the University of Louisiana. On that next slide has got a picture of the 2 people that I serve with. Pastor Eric has been on that campus for 20 years. He runs a ministry called Chi Alpha. And they do a ton of stuff with the regular student body, and then they house our athletes. So once a week on Wednesday nights, we get our whole group of athletes that get to come on there. And then he has, along with other stuff, all these other things everywhere else, I think we take all these life lessons, and we have all these lessons, all these different things we learn, and they can kind of turn us and get us to the point where we are today. I think all of us should learn, and this is one of the biggest things that we should all learn, to be able to tell a little bit of our story. Because by telling our story, we're hopefully teaching. Jesus chose to go out everywhere he went to be able to tell stories everywhere. He's told, I would say parabola, I have no idea what the parabola, the big curve. He told these parables everywhere he went. And he taught people mostly by teaching stories. My story started here. It changed drastically from this ugly life of other things I was going down. That was a story for a different day. But it took all this other type of stuff and it took a drastic left turn. Then it put me to somewhere completely different. It took me back to the point that I get to sit up here. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, when I was sitting in church, if I would ever be up here on stage sharing a little bit, I would have told you guys, you're crazy. And I think some of the people here in church, Junior and Porter and all the other guys I was hanging out with and stuff, they would have told me I was crazy too. They were like, there's no way that Coach Ben will be up here talking. That's hogwash. That'll never happen. But I learned stuff. I learned a whole lot of stuff here, especially with that college and career group. I learned how to be Christ-centered and mission-driven. I learned very much what that part of life means. And I believe that is ingrained in all of us. That we all have these little things of us that are ingrained in us, these little parts that we have to be able to offer, be able to give out to the rest of the world. I learned that here with that college and career. I've taken that and run with it. I learned it sitting here in the pews that what it meant to be Christ-centered. That to put Christ first in everything I did. It didn't matter what it was, but I was going to put that point first. And Christ was going to be the center of my heart, the center of my life, the center of everything I did. The verse that taught me that is Matthew 28, 19 through 20. It says, therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teach them everything I've commanded you, and surely I am with you to the very end of the age. That gave me a purpose. That gave me a purpose in life. It gave me something to be able to go and do. It's commonly known all over the world as the Great Commission. A couple months back in December, feels like it was like 2 weeks ago because of the COVID part and all this other weirdness in there. But they actually have a ministry that they call there with everybody all falls under the same thing. The Fellowship of Christian Athletes that I work for, Athletes in Action, and all these mission-oriented organizations all around the world. When they come in there, they come underneath this great umbrella. They literally just call it the Great Commission. Yeah, you're from the Great Commission. I'm like, I have no idea what you mean. But yeah, I'm from the Great Commission. I'm wearing my shirt that says either Cajuns for Christ or a second shirt that says FCA. I'm like, yeah, you're from the Great Commission. And it took me a long time to understand that that's actually this verse that they were talking about. But it gave me a purpose. It gave me a purpose again that I learned right here. That I learned right here, what I could pass on, and what I could pour into other people, what I could be able to do, what other people were doing to me. Where I had Corey Hughes and Pastor Rodney and Jeff and Glenn Benny and all these people that were poured into me and helped me figure out who I was, I could do that. I've been doing it all along. I've been doing it as a coach. I've been doing it as a coach, teaching kids that they can be better athletes, that they can do all this other kind of stuff. All my life, I've been teaching people to be better people. But I was teaching people to be better athletes so they could help me win a game. I was teaching people to do all this other stuff because that's what the world told me. That's all these other things. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to teach people to be better at sports so we can win. But it gave me a different point. And it gave me, in all honesty, it gave me a mission in life. It gave me this point to say, okay, my mission in life is making disciples. And again, this is that story, right? That story where I took and I was a coach. I came in here and I met Christ. And I met this incredible body of people with literally Kayla and Kristen that first Wednesday night sitting here like, hey, let's go to Waffle House. And then we very quickly all picked on Kara, and it was, made everything, oh, hi Kara, how do you do? They made everything fabulous. It was this great thing. We went to Waffle House until, don't tell the kids when you guys get to the point, college kids go out until 2 in the morning. You don't want to do that, it's really silly and fun. But we went to this point of sitting there, and we learned this point of making disciples. That making disciples is all about truthfully living life together and being able to hold each other accountable to what this great book says to us. So it gave me a mission. My mission looks different now. The mission looks way different now. And as I'm going to continue in this, God is changing it every day. Because I'm learning to listen and learning to listen better. So right now on campus, it looks like this. We have over 350 kids on our campus, and this is actually pictured at a different place up north where there's a college athlete retreat. There were over 350 college athletes from all these different places. And for the first time, my university had 23 kids there. As a leadership retreat, where I get to take all these kids to this leadership retreat because I go and fundraise for it too, but because I get to be able to pour into all of them. It looks way different. It looks at this point now, it looks at, I get to give out these. I get to give out these incredible Bibles. Every Bible's got their own thing on it, got their own point to it, and I think if we can relate to everybody, we can get to a point to be able to talk to other people in a language that they understand. It makes a big difference. This is a Fellowship of Christian Athletes Bible, and that's just me sitting back so you taking a picture. I know the pictures are amazing, aren't they? But we gave out 17 cases of Bibles last year. 17 cases to college athletes in a couple of high schools. And then God changed this a little bit, and he said, you know what, so we can't just do it there. I'm going to send you somewhere else. I'm going to send you to Ethiopia. And you're going to learn that your campus is not the only place in the world. Your campus is your 300 to 400 student athletes that you cherish so much. This baseball team, I literally go to baseball practice every single day. I'll sit in the dugout with them during the game. In a Division I baseball program, I get to sit in the dugout and talk to guys about their relationship with Christ, and I even talk about it in practice, and it's like it's nothing. I get to walk on the sideline during football practice. During the football game, we're sitting, me and Pastor Eric, and because he's our football team chaplain, are sitting on the sideline, and there's 4 NFL scouts sitting right next to us asking about the character and integrity of the kid next to us. Hey, what do you think about that guy, Elijah Mitchell? He's going to be pretty good. What's he like off the field? And because God has let me pour into those people's hearts, it's got this other kind of points. But he's changing me. He changed me, sending me to Haiti. He changed me, sending me to the Dominican Republic. He changed me, sending me to all these other places. And he sent me to Ethiopia. And the bottom picture of that is a guy named Teddy. Don't ask me to say his name for real. I just call him Teddy because it's, I don't know their language. The language of Amharic is so hard to be able to say it. But now I even get to talk to Teddy once a week. He gets bored when he's sitting there doing his ministry stuff at night because he's a missionary in Ethiopia. He's Ethiopian. He was born and raised, and his English is pretty good. But he spends all of his time being able to bring other people like me over there. And then his ministry is literally walking around with people in their later terms of their life just before they're ready to pass this world. And he goes and he helps them find housing, helps them find food, helps them find all this other stuff. He does all these amazing things. And I get to go spend time with him. And it opened my eyes a little bit like, oh my gosh. Here I am thinking I am something crazy and important because I get to talk to athletes. But here is this guy, Teddy, that's doing something, if you ask me, way bigger, way different. And we sat down and had this conversation about it. And he's like, well, why are you more important than me? I'm not more important than you. And it literally had this moments of like clarity type of points. For me to say, hey, yeah, you're this missionary, you're a person that Westwood Baptist sent out. And I truly feel that way, that this church sent me first to North Dakota, and then I came back for like a week or two, and then off to Louisiana to go and coach originally. But it put this little seed of other things planted in me to go and do other things. And as me and Teddy were sitting here talking, and he's like, no, we're all important. We all have our own parts. We have our own little parts in this big thing that we call it. We have our own little thing here in the church. We have our own little parts in the world. It doesn't matter if you're a police officer. It doesn't matter if you've served in the military. It doesn't matter if you're a school teacher or if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's. We all have our own parts. We all have our own job. We all have our own mission. We all have our own mission field. I get to call myself a missionary. That doesn't make me any more missionary than somebody who's building a house, depending on the way and how I'm going and doing it. And I decided, honestly, I could feel myself have this inflated head a little bit. I get to go and do God's work all the time. I get to go and do all these great, amazing things. And I kept saying, I get to go do this. I get to go out and do this. I get to go do all this other stuff. And then I sat down with Teddy and I saw what he does. And I'm not going to lie, it wrecked me. It wrecked me to think that here I am thinking I'm doing, and I'm not going to discount anything that God has put me in these places, and these places go and do different things, that I get to help young men be able to understand what it means to be a man in the world, not what the locker room says. I'm not going to discount that because I think that's truly important. But here was Teddy, who lives in a room. I really say a room, like he actually stayed in the hotel room with us at the hotel when we were in Ethiopia, because the hotel room, which we would probably equate to like a Motel 6, which is a luxurious hotel room there in Ethiopia, he was like, this is nicer than my house. And he showed us where he lived, and I was like, wow, this is nicer than your house. And we drove past it, and it was and it was up the road. I didn't actually see in where he lived because we were so busy all the time. But the blow me away to think of this hotel room, and here's a guy that truly walked around with the word of joy on his heart. The word of joy in everything he did, because he knows that he's spreading the word of God. And we sat and talked for a long time, where Teddy could change my life going forward. Could change my thought process from me of saying, I am doing all this kind of stuff. And I've always had it in the back of my mind, it's not really me doing it, but he made it real. To be able to say, it's not me doing it, but it's God doing it through me. We have so much more in our lives that we are doing, that we can do, and so many more lives that we go out and touch that sometimes don't have any idea what we're doing. But I had this, I felt like I had this great inflated ego, like right, this all this other kind of points. Because we have 300 college athletes that come, literally, I want to say there's 398 or 389, I can't remember that dyslexic part of me, but we have all these college athletes that come in. And then sometimes there's 20, sometimes there's 50, most of the time it's around 100 kids coming. And we're changing kids' lives. I did the same thing that this church taught me. The same thing that taught me here, where me and Junior met on Tuesday nights. And then me and Porter would meet on a different day. And then me and Lance and a couple other people met on Wednesday mornings at Jack's. And then we had another group that met on Thursday nights. We had these discipleship groups, where me and JM and then me and Andrew, and literally had all these groups everywhere. I would jump in, I would be 5 or 6 of them a day. Not a day, 5 or 6 of them a week. Right? 5 or 6 of these things are these discipleship groups. With a mission that this church taught me to have all these groups. I get to do that on our campus. Every single day of the week, in a different morning, I get to meet with a different person. I kept saying, I get to do this, I get to do this, I am making such a big difference. I am doing all this kind of stuff. And then I go to Ethiopia and I learn something else, and kind of put this little twinge where I think God does this. He puts a little seed. He puts a little thoughts in your head. And then he just lets it fester. And it drives you absolutely batty, because you have this little thought that sits in your head where something just feels like it's slightly out of balance. And you have this little part in there, even though I'm doing what I feel like is the will of God, there was something that was just growing, I think festering, but growing, this extra little part that's growing inside of me. And I'm thinking, I have to challenge myself and I have to do something more. I need to do something more. I know what I'm doing is great, but I need to do something more. And then COVID hits. And the whole world changed for me. I'm sure everybody can relate to this point that this COVID-19, the Chinese originated virus, whatever, I don't really exactly know, the coronavirus, there's 1,000 different names that go out for it. But all of a sudden, Corona hits. And here I'm thinking, I've got to change. I've got to change, I've got to do something more. And I can feel it festering. I can feel this little bit of unbalance, even though I'm doing what God wants me to do. He's trying to tell me to do more, and I have no idea what he's telling me. None. None at all. This is that story of that point where I think as we learn from it, it gets more. So here's my more. Here's a little bit of the more. During the COVID point, God didn't say ministry is canceled. He didn't come out and say, hey, go away. He didn't come out and say, hey, just because you can't meet in person, that means you're over with. He said, let's do more. Let's do absolutely more. There are 3 different pictures up there, even though it might kind of only look like 20 of them. The picture in the, yeah, good, it looks the same. In the upper left picture for me is a girl named Lori Shimasaki in California. And we started a Bible study in California. I got to help her start a Bible study in California. And that's her and 2 other people at the bottom of it that are praying over a group. There's kids, student athletes from Georgia, there are student athletes from California, and there are student athletes from California. And we all sat down and prayed together. And we get to listen to different people share their testimony, or do what I'm doing right now, is just sharing your story. Share what God is teaching you right now in that moment. Because he's going to teach you all kinds of crazy things. The baseball players in the bottom corner, they said, hey, let's keep going. They would be all states of awakeness. Sometimes there'd be 5 of them, sometimes there'd be 2 of them, sometimes there'd be 20 of them. But all of a sudden in the mornings, they're going to come out to this point and say, hey, let's keep talking. Let's keep learning. And the top of it, that's our campus group. There's actually, because on my iPad, it only shows 9 people per screen. I could wave over. And that first 6 weeks of it, there is literally 9 people on each page of that screen. And there was 6 pages of them. So we had 54 college athletes that would come log in every Wednesday night. But I know that wasn't my mission. That wasn't this mission point. That wasn't this point of saying, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Because what I learned during this time, what I learned having conversations with whether it's student athletes or kids outside the student athletes, is they put up a whole lot of this extra fear. Because we had a whole bunch of these kids that oh my gosh, I lost my senior season. I might not be able to come back in the fall. I get it. I can see it. I know everyone's got that same fear of people in this church. I don't know what school is going to look like in 2 months. Nobody knows. So we have this extra fear of what's going to come up. All this extra anxiety that builds up. All this other stuff that in there, where we have this mindset of saying, it's not fair. Life isn't fair. And then I met some of these other people that had the opposite end of the spectrum, thinking, hey, I have no responsibility, I'm free. I get to go off and hang out. I get to go and do all these other things. There's no pressure right now. I don't have to play baseball. I don't have to throw my fastball at 106 miles an hour. I can go off and be free to the whole world. So it was crazy to have these discipleship talks, and everybody wanted to keep going with them. And they turned into from 14 different Zoom calls to all these phone calls, all these other things in there. But God kept telling me, there's something more for you to learn here. There's something else in here. There's something more that you have to learn during this points. Because the next picture comes through is a little bit more of the same. You have to learn a little bit something else. That's our golf team. On the right-hand side, that's through FaceTime. So some of the little screens and some are big screens, because that was what the avenue they wanted to do. And then to get kids to keep coming, we found a way that we could use a Domino's pizza app. We could send them pizza. In case you guys aren't curious, college kids want food. You can bribe them with food to get them in the door. It works amazing. But we could do whatever we had to. We give them pizza. We literally, the first person to log in today, or we pick a random name, we just find the Domino's app and send a pizza to their house. So at 8 o'clock when we were starting, or 5 minutes after 8, suddenly pizza showed up. They go to the door, open the door. They come in and eat pizza in front of everybody, and it was hilarious. But the bottom corner is our coaches group. And then all the riots started happening, and all these other things started going on. And then our fear and this anxiety and all these other things went even farther. And God said, shut up and listen. Stop talking. The verse is out there that said it 1,000 times. You can hear it. Be quick to listen, slow to speak. Those guys over here were all attested to the fact I struggled with that. Right? Yes. Get to that point of just listen. And we had these amazing conversations. Just absolutely amazing conversations. But I kept thinking, okay, so what is this extra fester? What is this extra points that's coming into my life right now that's going with me? Teddy alluded to it a little bit that, hey, I'm not more important, not anything else, that there's something else that gets back to us. So I kept going back, and now we have all this extra quiet time. Because these 14 phone calls, all these other phone calls, and literally I made it a goal. Because God wants me to do more. I'm going to call 20 coaches a day. Not the same ones every week. I'm going to make a way that I'm going to call 20 coaches a day, because I'm not doing enough. And literally, the first 2 weeks of this COVID, they're starting more Zooms and doing all these other things, and God said, smack on the face at one point. That's not what I'm telling you. Slow down. And he really checked me to a point that's saying, hey, your mission in life is making disciples, but who's discipling you? Literally had to check myself to get to this point of thinking, yeah, that coaches group, they disciple me. I know that those guys are pouring into me as I'm pouring into them. I get to bring a verse. I get to hear their point of view of it. I get to hear from Hollis Conway, a former Olympian that's on our diversity council, that talks about all the issues that are going in and out. One of our other coaches, a former police officer, Coach Jones, he comes in and talks about the different things that he saw, and opened my eyes up to a whole lot of other stuff. And I did a great job of listening. But as I was listening to these guys talk, and as I was listening to this conversation with Teddy 6 months later, because they're just going through the lockdown in Ethiopia, and they're like 4 or 5 weeks behind us, he's like, okay, what are you doing? How do I do this? Literally got to a point of me saying, I don't know. But I know that somehow, something in there, that there's got to be somebody who can teach me this. There's got to be somebody, some way, somehow, where people can get to a point where I can learn from somebody else. And this is where the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, I think, stepped up huge. About 2 weeks into this, I learned, again, what this church taught me, is it's not just about me going off and telling other people great things about God, too. I need to have someone in my life that's telling me great things as well. So here's 3 pictures of what happened in the next couple of weeks. You can tell I'm really picture-oriented. I love pictures. I think they draw my attention. They don't have to look at me, and I know you're looking up there, and I don't get as nervous. But anyway. So the first 3 pictures, and one of them says huddle up, and the FCA did all these things, and they are still available on YouTube TV, on the FCA Live TV page. But organized all of these groups that were, most of them were led by Ben Watson, who was a tight end for the Patriots, who was a big champion of our faith. And he basically, they were these interviews, and he had all these interviews with all these different pro athletes from all over the place. That one that's up there says it's Matt Hasselbeck, who is a former quarterback. He finished his career at the Seattle Seahawks. Again, a great champion of our faith that nobody knows anything about, but he got up and talked and shared about his faith. Matthew Slater is the guy on the bottom. He's a wide receiver. But the one that impressed me the most athlete is a girl athlete in the middle. Her name is Gigi Marvin. Gigi is a hockey player, a professional women's hockey player. And listening to the way she shared the gospel and all this other stuff, I was blown away. This is the first of some of these trainings that the FCA said we're going to go and do. Then we got to sit in on a training, and we actually, our region got to sit down and talk to Tony Dungy. So here's Tony Dungy just talking to our 26, I think, staff members. Everybody logged on that day. Most of the time it's not 12. But I got to speak to Tony Dungy. I got to listen to Tony Dungy be able to talk about his faith. And then Dabble Sweeney. I know he's a Clemson guy, he's not an Alabama coach, but that man can talk his faith. He not only talks it, but I've talked to a couple of people that work for him. He lives it. He doesn't just go out there and show up on Sunday, but during the week, he lives his faith every day. He gets to that point that he makes sure that he has other people in his life that just can check him. Be like, hey, that's not right. That's not going to be faithful. Like, that's not going to be the right way of dealing with it. And he goes out and does it. And listening to that man talk was unbelievable. I really wish when I was here, I would have spent more time just in the state to our east and listened to Mark Ritt, because he was at Georgia when I was living here. There's another man who is an incredible champion of his faith that the FCA said, hey, let's listen to these guys. They brought on a guy named Mike Bickle. I laughed because I thought it said IHOP. I'm like, IHOP? Yeah, he's from IHOP. Why are we listening to a guy from IHOP? But Mike Bickle is actually the International House of Prayer. And I was like, oh, that's not IHOP. I'm not getting pancakes today. I'm not going to hear about pancakes. But the International House of Prayer, this guy that leads from the International House of Prayer, sat down with us one Sunday and just talked about changing our prayers. About the fact that we should actually pray for things. And we're allowed to actually say, God, I would love it if you found me somebody who could put up with me for more than 20 minutes at a time. That's where Michael called me the next day. It was amazing. No, I'm kidding. But we could actually spend time in our regular prayers. We can spend time in our regular lives, and we can actually learn to pray. It's amazing that this guy that I can now use as a resource, and I can find other people to talk to about this because I listened. Because here, hey, you can log into this phone call if you want to, and I can listen to Mike Bickle talk about the prayer. But it didn't do anything with it if I didn't go home and try to make that change. The most impactful of all these people, and there were 30 different people that put on these phone calls, was a guy named John Gordon. And his book is right there on the right-hand side, and I'm going to talk about another one of his resources in a second. But John Gordon got up and shared his testimony. He shared his testimony. Here's a guy that was a businessman. I called him afterwards, and I've talked to him a couple of times. I've read two more of his books since. And every week I log into a podcast and I'll talk about it a little bit, just so I can listen to the other things in there. John Gordon talked about his testimony of being this guy, and I identified with it, who was getting stuff done. He's going around the world, he's got this business, he's got this .com business, and all of a sudden, business just up and failed and everything else, all the .com, he lost a crazy amount of money. And he was miserable, mean, nasty, and he's going around and doing everything in his life, and his wife literally told him one day, he's like, if you don't change back to the man that I married, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to leave you because I can't deal with this negativity. I can't deal with this crap. I can't deal with this complaining all day, every day. It happened. It's part of life. Wake up. And someone said this to him as he was going through this, misery cannot exist where gratitude is present. Think about that one. Misery cannot exist where gratitude is present. To me, my prayer life that Dan Nickel talked about a little bit earlier is this gratitude of life. It's this point where I can pray to God and thank Him for all those amazing things that happened to me. I can thank Him for having some amazing friends in my life. I can thank Him for the fact that He's given me this opportunity to come in front of you today. But if I'm not in prayer with Him, I'm not in conversation with Him, then some of this misery can exist. Some of that fear and anxiety of what's going on in our world can exist if I'm not spending time with my Lord. Some of these other things will come out there and they'll come and bite you in the rear end just because I'm not spending time with the Lord. So somebody encouraged him, and I actually did it as soon as I heard him talking. I took Champagne. Champagne's my dog. She's pretty amazing. I took her for a walk. And I went on what I call a gratitude walk. And I took Champagne, and literally, I was going twice a day. But here I was at this point, and I feel like things are going great in my life. But I can still feel this extra little bit of misery, this extra little point, and this, gosh, I can't go to work. I can't go to baseball practice. I can't go to all these sports. I can't see people in person. I'm a people person. I want to talk to people. I love shaking someone's hand. I love going up and flicking somebody, poking at people, just picking at people. That's who I am. And I couldn't do all this stuff, so I had this extra little misery part in me. So I started going on these gratitude walks. And as I was going on these gratitude walks, I had these thoughts, and I heard someone else say it years ago, that I got to stop listening to myself. Literally. Think about that one. Are you actually listening to yourself, or are you talking to yourself? John Gordon said it a couple weeks later in one of his talks, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I heard him say it the first time, I just didn't even realize it. But I was going on these walks. And as I'm going on the walks with Champagne, and we're stopping, and she's a therapy dog, so she goes, eventually we'll go to some hospitals and visit little kids and go to the old folks center and visit people there. She's pretty great. She's pretty hyperactive right now too, so we have to wait for her to calm down. But as I'm doing all this stuff, I'm literally thinking, am I being gracious for everything I have? Am I listening to all this other stuff? Am I having all this positive energy and everything else pouring into my life? Or am I listening to that voice that's in here? Because if I listen to the voice, really be honest with you, if I listen to the voice that's inside of my head most of the time, I don't even think that I'd be friends with that person. Especially before I moved here. If I go back to the person I was before I gave my life to Christ, I know I wouldn't be friends with that person right now, today. The things I told myself were ugly. I told myself that's, not that I don't need a haircut now, but your hair looks horrible. I would tell myself, you're not tall enough. I could tell myself everything in the world, think about it. I could tell myself I wasn't ugly enough. I needed to gain weight, so I needed to lose weight. The amount of things, as I sit down with our student athletes and these guys and young men and young women all over the place, the amount of things we tell ourselves in our own head are disgusting. If I listen to the thoughts that go through here, I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to drive myself crazy. If I listen to these great devices we have right here and look on Facebook where everyone else tells me that I'm wrong every day, I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to be tied and turned and pulled so far off into left field that I'm going to miss the whole game. I'm going to be wrapped up in everything else when I listen to myself. But when I start talking to myself, it makes a big difference. When I can go on that gratitude walk and really, again, it might sound really corny, but watch a bird fly by, oh, that was pretty. I'm so thankful that bird flew by today. It sounds really corny, it sounds really dumb, but even talking to John Gordon, he said he had to do it. He had to walk by and watch a cardinal land in a tree. And be like, oh, that's a really pretty rat. I'm thankful that it's there. For me, it's being out in a kayak, paddling around. I get my grateful time I'm out there. Andrew Klingon and Porter and these guys would say the only way to get Ben to shut up was to take him out fishing, because all of a sudden he's quiet, because I was quiet, and I was spending thankful time with God. I could spend all this time out in the water, and I wasn't listening to my own thoughts. I was spending my time with my Savior. I'm spending time with God and letting Him pour into me. I'm spending this time in prayer. I'm spending this time in a point where I'm thinking about all this other stuff. One of the scriptures this reminds me of is we are not supposed to be afraid. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, for I have not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of sound mind. That's not the voice in my head sometimes. The voice in our head is a fleshly voice. It's a voice of this world. But when I can spend time with my Savior, He tells me this. get a little goosebump there, get a kind of point where I just think about that. I think about the fact that he's giving me a spirit of fear. The ones that know me know that I'm not afraid. You would have told me 10 years ago that I've been sitting up here talking, I would have told you guys are nuts, I don't belong up there, but I'm not afraid to be up there. I'm not afraid of anything. I've moved literally from the Canadian border when I woke up every morning and looked out my window at the Canadian border. Every single morning I would wake up and I could go fish in the water. I could paddle 300 yards off in the water, technically in the Canadian water. I moved from the Canadian border at the uppermost point of Michigan to Lake Charles, Louisiana. Literally, you'd take a boat out 20 minutes south and you're in international water. I went from the northernmost border of our country to the southernmost border of our country. The guy that was the volleyball coach at JSU said, hey, you want to come be my assistant? I just packed up Lake Charles and moved over here. And then God said to me while I was here, hey, do you want to pick up and go to North Dakota? They need an SDA person to help run a campus on Putnam. And I said, okay, let's go. So if I reflect back, he's given us this spirit of not giving us a spirit of fear, but giving us this power. He's given us this little extra part of us when we listen to him. He's given us this great, amazing things. But we have to be in the will of God in order to understand what that is. We have to be in this point of understanding of what God wants from us in order for us to be able to get to this point of understanding what that power of this love and this sound mind. And we do that by fellowship with each other. We do that by reading his word. Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So you may discern what is good, what is pleasing, and what is in the perfect will of God. During this COVID time, as I'm going through, this is one of the verses actually one of the baseball players asked me about. Our golf team went through the book of Romans and then went to James, and they're flying through stuff. But our group of baseball guys, the 6 baseball guys that are meeting on Thursday mornings, we were going through the book of Romans, and I'm not going to lie, we're not even finished yet. Once a week, we go through one or two chapters of it. But when we got to this verse, one of the baseball guys asked me about the same time that I was going through the John Gordon stuff. I said, what does that mean? What does it mean to not be conformed to this age? And we sat down and we talked about, hey, the drinking and the stupidness that other people want to go and do on the weekend. Do you really think that's important? Do you really sit there and go like this? Normally it's this big, but go like this on your Facebook page or your Instagram feed. Is that stuff really what's important to you? Because if that's what's being important to you, then what other people say, what other people are telling you what's important, what other people are doing, this other kind of stuff, you're going to sit there and whine, and you're going to stuff there, and you're going to spin in circles, and you're going to let other things define you. You're going to feel that fear that you're not enough. You're going to feel that anxiety that there's all this other stuff going on out there. You're going to feel all this extra things that you're just going to get pent up. But you can be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This book, that Bible, the book of life, will transform you and change your mind all over the place if you open it. Not just on Sundays when you walk in here and you get to that point, you open the book up for Sundays, like, yep, I went to church, check that off, done, let's go home. Not just on Sundays, not for us, not just on Wednesday nights. Not just on Wednesday night when you walk in to the athlete Bible study. Maybe you go to church on Sunday too, but on Wednesday nights, your coaches and me, I'll know that you're there. I'll give you a hard time in practice all week if you're not. But it's not about just coming on Wednesday nights. It's about opening that book and letting it transform your minds. So you can discern what is good, what's pleasing, and the perfect will of God. I didn't understand what God was trying to teach me as he put this little festering moments in me. He's just putting this other moments of other things in me to be able to say, hey, you need to do something different a little bit. You need to be able to challenge yourself and get out. You need to do something a little bit more. You need to learn from other people and do all this other kind of stuff. And it finally got to me to a point when I was listening to one of these. John Gordon also puts on this Positive University podcast. It's a podcast. For you guys that don't know what a podcast is, it's literally the video too, but you can click them on there on every smartphone that's our world, and 99% of them are free. But this guy interviews people all around the world that lead their life with positive energy. Just to get away from the negativity of that's failure, this failure, turn on the news, and all you're just going to see is everything negative out in this world. I don't need to turn on the news. I can look at a factual website and see how the COVID cases are going up and going down. And if they're going back up again. Well, yeah, they're going back up in 18 to 29-year-olds because they're all around each other, because they're all going out to colleges or high school workouts and all this other stuff. So they're all around each other. But the hospital visits are still going like this. They're going down. But the news isn't telling us all that right now. They're all telling us all this other stuff. But I can disseminate from all that kind of stuff because I'm not being transformed and conformed to the world. I'm going to listen to what God's telling me to look at. I'm going to look at the actual numbers and draw my own conclusion from it. I'm going to look at this book. I'm going to surround myself and be around these people who are going to pour these positive words into my mind because I want to be transformed by that. I'm going to be transformed by all this positive stuff that's everything else is kicking out of this world. And I'm going to listen to somebody who's literally interviewing people just about being positive. He interviewed a guy who started the Ritz-Carlton. Because they believe at the Ritz-Carlton, if you're going to work and you're going to do your job the best you can, because even after being there for 5 years, even if you're just a bellhop, you're going to own a percentage of the Ritz-Carlton. Every person, after being there for 5 years of it, owns a percentage of their company. You can decide to give more of your salary to it, own more if you want. But if you get to that point that you understand that you own part of the company you work for, you take a bigger pride at it. It was on a Positive View podcast. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. That was one of the first ones I listened to. I listened to another lady last night, not last night, it felt like last night, but on Thursday when I was driving here, I listened to one. I've listened to one every single day, and not only then, I was going on a walk with Champagne once a day in the mornings, going to the gratitude walks. I started going on a John U. Positive University podcast walk every afternoon. I was in COVID, we're not allowed to do anything else, right? So why not? So I'm walking the dog twice a day, walk her every morning, and then walk her every night, listening to this Positive University podcast. And as I sat down with all this kind of stuff, we have these journeys, right? We all grow. We all grow through our lives, we grow through everything else. The past couple of years, if you opened up my phone, you saw the word joy on my phone. So the word joy, I put it on there because I was not going to let any person or circumstance rob me of my joy. Literally, that was my screensaver. That's what my phone looks like when you press the button. The verse in Hebrews reminds us of what joy means. That joy is actually true happiness, knowing we're going to go through trials and tribulations and still know that we have God with us, basically. But I have this joy. That was what I want to remind myself of it every single day. I did. I was like, I got to remind myself of what's going on. But we all grow. And through this Positive University podcast and through all this other kind of stuff, I think I need to, it's not about growing necessarily that way, but I need to grow and have a bigger impact for the world. The definition of the word impact means to come into force, able to connect or contact with another. And the second definition, which I think kind of fits me a little bit better, is to have a strong effect on something or someone. We all are going to go off again. We have this great voice. Every one of us is given a voice. Everyone's given a way that we can talk. We have some incredible people that I know their hearts are teachers in this church. We have some people that are doing, again, all kinds of crazy, amazing things all around our community. You can. I don't care if it's a student. I don't care if you are a 10-year-old kid to a grandparent or anything else. You can have an impact on somebody else. You have this amazing impact without even saying, hey, hi, I'm a Christian, because some people are totally offended by that. You don't have to walk up and say, hey, that's wrong, you didn't do that right, because now they're going to feel judged and do something else. All you have to do is walk out there, put the armor of God on, and walk out there with a positive attitude about everything else, and what's amazing thing that other people are going to come and do to you? They're going to ask you questions. They're going to walk up and to a guy like Ben up here and be like, how are you happy all the time, man? How do you do that? Because I don't think I've ever seen that guy not just giggling and goofy. But you get to walk out in the rest of the world and be that person. So God really has challenged me into this point. And he has said, you need to have a bigger impact. You need to have a bigger impact. So I've done that. I've gotten this challenge. In the last month, I sat down and met with a couple people in the board office. I met with 3 different principals about taking our group, which is always in the goal. It's always been the goal to be able to grow that group. But taking that group, which is not just a college athlete group, but now I'm taking that impact. And I've been, for sure, started on 16 different schools in our area. Because I listened to what God said, because I know that I'm in this will of God right now. That he said, hey, I need you to grow. I need you to do something different. So I said, I don't know these people. So I went out and met one of them. And that one turned to another one, which turned to another one. And this person said, hey, I'll give you a list of one coach at every school I think that would be open to the idea of starting an FCA huddle on their campus. 16 different groups by doing one thing. My life verse, if you ask me, the one verse that sticks out to me that I learned when I was here, that I've said over and over and over again, I think that this verse sticks out to me as a coach, it has stuck out as me as a brother, it has stuck out as me as a son, it has stuck out to me as a teaching concept. Colossians 3:23-24 says, whatever you do, work at it with all of your heart, as working for the Lord, not for our human masters. Since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward, it is the Lord Christ that you are serving. So I want to close with that thought. I want all of us to kind of think back. And as we reflect through the rest of the day, in a little bit when the worship band's coming back up and they're going to talk in a minute after Jeremy talks about the rest of it coming out, I want you guys to think about that point. When I go off into the regular world, what am I doing? How am I serving other people? Am I really serving a human master? Am I serving just my job while I'm there, or am I taking Christ into my job with me? Because if I just walk into my job and do my job and check out at the end of the day, great, you did your job. That's awesome. But if you walk into your workplace and you check in that place and you bring God with you into that workplace, and you know you're not there just to serve the human masters, your boss is telling you to do your job, you have to do it this way, you have to meet these quotas or these standards or these types of other things in there. But you can truly walk into your job every day and know that you have Christ with you, and He's with you with your side, and you're not there to serve your boss, but you're in your job to serve Christ while you're there. It is amazing the different things that are happening. I know that I serve God every day, and I know that there are people in my job that say, hey, we should probably reach out to the high schools at some point when you're ready. And maybe that was them planting a little seed too that someone else watered, and it grew into something completely different. But this thought process scares, I'm not gonna lie, it scares the crap out of me. Knowing how busy I've been the last couple of months and how busy I was the last year, to start 16 more groups on 16 different high schools and middle schools in my area, it scares me a little bit. But I know that I'm going to be able to walk in there and know that who I'm serving. And when I can walk into my everyday, and I can walk out knowing that I have the backing of this church, knowing that I have the backing of this incredible group of supporters, knowing that I have Mr. Rodney Kling that I can pick up the phone and call anytime I need to, knowing that I can have other friends and other people in my life that I can pick up and say, hey, how would you handle this? That I have the fellowship of other people with me, and that most importantly, I have this book and this word of life that is going to transform me. I know that I can walk off into the world and be able to serve the world the way I'm supposed to. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you for sharing with us. What an awesome testimony, man. Thank you so much for being obedient to call on life. Before we conclude service, a couple of quick announcements. Senior tables are still set up in the missions hall. They will be coming down Wednesday. So if you haven't had a chance to stop by and check those out, please do. There's Bibles on each of them that the church provided for each of these seniors, and sign your name on them. Just let these seniors know how proud you are of them. Everybody be praying. VBS starts this Wednesday, isn't that right, Amber? You got anything you need to add to that? Yes. If you haven't registered your little ones, you can still go online and register. So far, what do you got, 16, 18 that's registered? I think it's 16 that's registered so far. So if you haven't registered your little ones, go in there and do that. Pass the word around and definitely be in prayer for that. I'm going to pray for our offering real quick. A couple of different ways. There's boxes set outside on both sides of the door. You can put your offering there. The wood box over here you can give online. I can't remember what it is. Text something Westwood. I can't remember what that is. Or you can mail it in. 41 State Farm Road, Alexander, Alabama, 36250, I believe. So a couple of different ways to give me that. So I'm going to pray for the offering and we'll dismiss. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, just thank you for this day, Lord. Thank you for this awesome message that you laid on Ben's heart, Lord. Lord, right now as we come to the time to just get back a small portion of what you so graciously bless us all with, Lord, I pray that it's sufficient in your eyes, Lord. I pray that it be used to just further your kingdom, Lord. Lord, we love you and we'll praise you. So in Jesus' name we all do pray. Amen.